day is closer to what we're doing here, but even still, done in a day is still not going to give the results that I'm going to be talking about. It's more like done in maybe 7 days, you know, cumulatively speaking. And some of that is because the paints or the things that we're using need time to cure before you can do the next stage with it, okay? So really, I don't think anything can be done in a day. As an industry in general, model railroaders want it quick. They want it done really, really quickly, just fast, cheap, which is why there's a lot of, and this might be arrogant to say this, but there's a lot of crap rolling around out there that, you know, people call it weathered. And it's not. Somebody's taken some pigment and they've slapped it on a locomotive or a car, and they go, wow, that's weathered, that looks great. So hopefully what we'll do over this session and however many sessions it takes is to sort of raise the bar in your eye and what you're seeing. Two things we want to accomplish. We're going to indicate weathering on N scale, okay? N scale is so freaking small. We all know that, you know, this hand railing here, if it were translated in real life, this thing would be, you know, this fat to scale, and it's not. In reality, it's, you know, it's a 1-inch diameter pipe. So there are some scale concessions we have to make, and the same thing's going to apply with the techniques that we're going to do, okay? With N scale, as opposed to HO, N scale is about the entire big picture. What do these actors look like on the stage of our modules? Okay, so it's not just like HO where you have a condensed vignette and the actors, the cars and the engines have more of a presence, or even like O is even bigger, okay? With O, you can sit there and noodle a rust weep to look so ridiculously realistic, okay, but can you do that on N, number one? And number two, do you want to do it on N? Okay, we have car drags in this club that are 20, 30 cars long. Right? They can't do that in HO unless you're San Diego, right? Running on the Tehachapi where you've got a realistic 88 car drag. And then again, you know, who wants to sit there and do rust weeps on 88 cars? So, you know, again, we have to find a balance. What can we do to indicate the effect of weathering versus actually doing it? Every now and then you might want to commit to a museum piece. And this is, you know, except for I haven't gotten to the tank and the wheels, the upper is what I would consider a museum piece in terms of the weathering. If you photograph that particular locomotive, you'll see some subtleties, and I noodled the crap out of it, okay? Get your glasses and look at the diamond plate deck, and you'll see that, you know, guys like Wendell have been walking on it, and it's worn out in certain places, trying to indicate where chains are wearing, and the paint of the chain is coming off, and it's bare metal that's being sort of polished by use and abuse. We're indicating paint fade, we're indicating, I'm going to be shocking a lot of information at you here, so be patient with me as I do this, but weathering implies the gathering of grime and terrestrial dirt, okay? It could be shop dirt, it could be grease for maintenance, it could be fuel spills. It's weathering from being out in the elements, rain, wind, sandblasting going across the Mojave, you know, diesel exhaust. So when we say weathering, we're talking about all of these types of effects. Some of them are additive and cumulative, like brine, dirt, and roadbed dirt that's going to get up on the trucks and nooks and crannies. Some of it is gathered by fuel spills and oil leaks, or where there's oil in the seam of the door and it's going to attract more dirt. Other of it is a subtractive process when the sun is bleaching and fading, when water is corrosively pouring across the surface and taking paint away. And again, so you have to look at what you want to accomplish, how much time you have to commit to that particular piece, and then you find your balance, okay? So ultimately that's the goal. That's what everybody wants, okay? Just yesterday, coming into the canyon, I passed the Ann Bard's dog. It was parked, it was creeping at Corona, just west of the dam. And I've noticed in recent years that if you compare a BNSF manifest train against a Union Pacific manifest train, Union Pacific looks like hell. Their cars are dirty, their engines are disgusting. BNSF is like a lot cleaner. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but it's rare to see an entire drag on a BNSF manifest train where all the cars are just beat to shit. It just doesn't happen. Union Pacific, man, it looks like hell. So, you know, you have a contrast of what you're going to see versus, you know, one railroad against another. So keep that in mind. What do you want to accomplish? Is it a 30-year-old car that's still in service and it's never been shopped? Is it a 30-year-old car that's so old that it got reshopped somehow, it got repaired, and it got new paint? Same thing with the locomotive. Is it an old, you know, I haven't really begun to beat up the war bonnet yet. I'm having an emotional discourse with myself right now, whether I want to really beat it up, like, you know, or do I want to, we all love the war bonnet, I think, right? So, you know, do I want to fade it out and rust it? I couldn't find, because of my move, I couldn't find my doing an HO Jeep 60M, and it was basically a test of the colors and techniques to do a war bonnet. And to some degree, I nailed it as a test bed for that. I don't have it with me. I'm going to have to bring it next time we do this so you can see it. But getting ahead of myself on that as well. This is something that Kerry did. When you jump into these techniques, please don't do it on a brand new $28 Intermountain car. Go to the next show and get a $5 piece of shit locomotive, or, you know, shell or a box car, and practice on that. Okay, practice on that for everything, for painting, for weathering, for sealing. Mike T handed me my keister for learning how to put super detailing grab irons on some of my, you know, Katos and some of my Fox Valley Jibos, and, you know, I drilled it with slide, and you know, they look like Mike Tyson punched it. I mean, it's disgusting. And he's like, why didn't you practice on a cheap box car? Why are you starting on a $125 locomotive? You know, so be smart about it. Okay, I'm kind of back to the top of the page here. These rules. Okay, be patient. Okay, be patient. Don't be in a hurry. You know, I really want to get this done for the show. I guarantee you, the minute you're in a hurry, you're going to screw something up. Okay, happens every time. Take no shortcuts. Okay, I'm like Mr. Frugal, and here I am trying to save a $3 bottle of Tester's paint, and because of that, I end up using a bad wash, and I end up ruining a $28 boxcar. I've done it. Take no shortcuts. Don't be penny wise, pound foolish, and you know, sneak up on your weathering. Okay, this shelf platform was another test bed, if you will. So I was trying to test what would be good for the screens across the windows, how to layer the effects of weathering on, to fade the boxcar red, to fade the graffiti, to make it look kind of like what you see a shelf platform looking like. So I'll come back to the shelf platforms because I've got 4 that are a work in progress. So anyway, kind of getting back to where the whole thing is coming from. These techniques have been tested, tried, and proven in the military and aviation weathering industry, and sort of have worked their way slowly in the last 8 to 10 years into the model railroading. Believe it or not, the world's greatest hobby, which has been around ostensibly longer than the other guys, we're on the tail end of what these state-of-the-art techniques are, okay? And about that, and getting kind of back to the disclaimer, some guys love dull coat, okay? Let's get that out of the way right now, because I told you in the email I was going to explain. Dull coat is manufactured by testers, and I have a lot of testers products that I use. I don't use dull coat, okay? I don't know what dull coat's formulated as, all right? So the whole method that I'm going to teach you, and it's easy once you get the system down, it's alternating between a matte acrylic plastic shrink wrap layer and a solvent-based wash. Let me get my solvent bases out here. Hang on. When I say solvent, obviously it's like lacquer thinner or enamel thinner, and here's some of the paints. The whole idea about this is that you can make a wash. Here it is. This is the stuff you want to use, and I've got this written down John was asking me about a materials list. It's kind of listed throughout.
Did you
this,
post that?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't post it to the group, but I emailed the PDF to everybody, so it needs to get posted to the group. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know how to post it to the group. I didn't know if there was a way to do that.
When early on you sent me a copy of something.
Right.
The same thing.
No, it's been revised several times since. So what I sent out 2 nights ago was the very latest version. That's the one you want to get. Testers has a thinner, the airbrush thinner, and they have a cleaner. Okay, they're different. The cleaner will work in a pinch to make a contrast wash with. Get the airbrush thinner. It's a little bit more gentle, and it's designed to thin the enamel paints to go through an airbrush. Okay, and so we use the airbrush thinner to make a contrast wash. Okay. These bottles, new, are like $1.29. Got a whole bunch of these because you're going to use them a lot. So you mix this thing and take 2 stainless steel BBs. Where did is there a tackle box around here somewhere? Oh, there it is.
We sold that.
Whoops. You sold it, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be interchanging between talking about techniques and some of the tips and stuff like that. Get a really good tackle box. Steve's got one. He showed me a month or so ago, 2 months ago. I've had this particular plano since 1984. It's still going strong. Here you go. Stainless steel BBs, not copper. Okay.
Where do you get those?
I found these at Walmart. It's one of the only things I've ever purchased at Walmart. I don't like Walmart's business practices. So anyway, I had to find these. I tried some of the other ones, and it made a mess. It actually reacted chemically in the mix. The stainless steel BBs, just put 1 or 2. It helps to stir it up. Kind of, by the way, some of these tips and tricks you probably already know, but I'm going to cover them anyway, just in case. So anyway, you have to mix the contrast wash so it's the consistency, and I say this in here, consistency roughly like 2% milk, okay, whole milk, no thicker than whole milk, and that's what you want to use. And so we're going to alternate between matte acrylic and a contrast wash, okay. The first thing you're going to do is prep the model, okay? When I prep a model, the wheels and trucks come off, all right? Go to your favorite, get a whole bunch of these cups and lids, Smart Final, wherever. Either buy them a whole bunch of Smart Final or grab them at your local flame broiler. Right? Just grab a couple extra at the flame broiler.
I like a lot of sauce. It's okay.
Yeah. But these are great. It's my own little trick, and you just grab a Sharpie and write on there the name and the road number, and throw the wheels and trucks in there. Believe me, if you don't do this, you can mess. Really, really, really big mess. So anyway, so that's the first thing you do to prep it. The other thing to do to prep is to take the model, take it apart, and in a sink, water, and just a couple of drops of any soap detergent. Okay, a little solution. Rinse the new boxcar in there a little bit, and you're doing 2 things. You're getting any of the mold release or any of the manufacturing processes out of the model, and you're getting finger oils off the model. Okay, once it comes out and you rinse that thing, you never touch it with your bare hands again until you're absolutely done, sealed. Okay, and I'll tell you why. I don't have a fingerprinted model. I've never made that mistake. Michael Gross did, and he brought it to our group one day and showed. He didn't realize.
You see it firsthand when you take a picture.
It'll show up. The matte acrylic will add, you'll see your fingerprint in there, and especially when you get to the chalks, it's like, wow, so this is what fingerprinting is. Fingerprint dusting. So you want to seal it. And one of the things that I use, where did it go? It's in here. Here we go. Nitrile gloves, not the latex. Nitrile, because it doesn't, the latex can react with some of the solids we work with. The nitrile is a little less resistant. I think less than $3 less than $5 at Lowe's. Package of 30 of these things. So get the rubber glove, do all the typical guy jokes, you know. When you're gloving up to weather, you know.
I don't know.
Exactly. Okay. So one of the tricks that you know. So once the glove goes on, hey, the gloves. I need a volunteer. You sir. I think they do come in sizes. I don't know. Okay. So once you glove up, I tell you, man, we're all kids.
That was gonna happen.
We're all kids at heart. Anyway, just make a mark. You don't have to put, well, maybe in your case put L. Okay. Put L and R. No. Just make a mark on the outside so that you know literally what side is the work surface and what side is the oil surface. Okay. So you don't reinfect the model once you start working with it. But okay. So glove up and you're working with it, okay, and you're holding the model, and it all, you know what? Honestly, it actually gives you a little bit of grip, so you don't accidentally drop the model. All right, so it's got a lot of benefits. So just get used to it. Okay, for rolling stock. Remove the trucks, the wheels, the couplers. Talked about the fast food cup. Gloves at all times. Okay, so you rinse it, you dry it. Let the model dry overnight. Try not to, you know, I'm going to weather tonight, and so I'm going to wash it and I'm going to weather it tonight, okay? If you have to do that, get your airbrush. I apologize. I was going to do a little bit of airbrushing today, but I don't have my brush with me or the hose. I didn't realize it until.
It's kind of hard to do that then.
Yeah, it's going to be real hard to do that.
Blow harder. Blow harder.
If you
kind of hard.
What kind of airbrush you got?
I brought two, a decent one and a cheap one.
What's the decent one?
It's I don't know, I have to get it. I don't even know.
All right, we may get into it later. We'll see how we go. I think one of the things I want to show you more than anything today is, first of all, show of hands, how many people have used an airbrush and used one regularly? That's awesome.
Okay. That was 2 questions.
Okay.
Don't let him get away with it.
How many have used an airbrush?
How many have used an airbrush? Okay.
Regularly?
Regularly. Okay. But the fact that all of your hands went up is extraordinarily rare for model hobby for railroaders. Okay. Seriously. Most railroaders statistically have what we jokingly call airbrush avoidance syndrome. Okay.
Yes.
They're freaked out. They don't want to fuss with it. They're afraid of it. Okay.
They go by the rattle can.
They don't want to clean it. Yeah. It's a commitment. Okay. This method, and this is another part of the arrogant bastard part about my disclaimer.
Pointing at me all the time. I didn't do it. I just think you're an arrogant, but anyway, go ahead.
No, these methods are really dependent on an airbrush. And if you do nothing else with the airbrush, you're going to use it just for matte acrylic. Okay? So you've got your car washed, all right? The first thing you're going to do is you're going to seal it. You're going to protect the factory decals and the factory paint by sealing it with matte acrylic, okay? When, I'm going to just have this as an approximation, okay? When you're going to airbrush it, a distance is about 8 to 12 inches. Depends on what pressure you're spraying at. I get into that in here a little bit, okay? The pressure depends on ambient temperature, on humidity levels, okay? When you mix this matte acrylic needs to be mixed to a solution of non-fat milk, okay?
It looks like it almost wants to separate.
Non-fat milk, okay? Thin it with the recommended tester's thinner. My guru taught me to use IPA, isopropyl alcohol, okay? This is airbrush cleaner, excuse me.
Beer.
Okay, yeah. Beer. Try it. Let me know how it works out. Isopropyl alcohol will work in a pinch, but several of us in the group kept getting some really unusual results. We were getting splotches, we were getting crazing, we were getting it like it was going on dry. Isopropyl alcohol evaporates really easily, okay? So, especially when most of us are doing some work out in Southern California, it's warm, it's dry, you know, your alcohol is drying before you're really getting any results. I wasn't getting these results so much because most of my work was being done at night. I lived in Mission Viejo, the moisture layer would come in, makes a difference, okay? As soon as I said, you know what, the hell with IPA, I went out and bought some of this stuff, because if you look on the label here, it says thin with, here's the model number. Both of these numbers are in the brief. Use this thinner. Thin to a solution of non-fat milk, load it in your airbrush, okay?
That's rather vague. Couldn't you do like a parts per to make like half a cc of this or 3 cc's of that? Or something that
No. He's got a legitimate question. He's got a legitimate question. Can you quantify the mix a little bit more? I can. I would say that you're basically looking at about 60% to 40% as a rough start, okay? 60-40, 60 on the thinner, 40 on this. And the reason why it's not an exact science, and that's a great question, thank you. And anytime you've got one of those questions, except for Stan, ask, okay?
He fears the glove.
Anyway, what the determining factor is your PSI at the brush nozzle, okay, and ambient temperature, humidity and such, okay? So anyway, when you spray, if you don't spray like this, start doing it. You start your pass, you go across the model, and you stop. Don't do this. Don't do that. Pass and done. So you start your flow, and you're hitting with an even distribution across the whole model, then you cut it off. Go to the next surface. Hit, stop, okay? End. Top to bottom, left to right, because you've got the little folds inside here. So if you just go up to down, you're going to miss. Left to right. Try and follow the contour of the detail, okay? You can hit it this way, go up and down. The first coat of matte acrylic, it's not going to, okay, let me back up a little bit. When we take these beautiful little box cars or whatever the subject is out of the box, it's a shiny piece of plastic. It looks like a toy. We all know it's a toy, okay? The minute you hit it with matte acrylic, automatically the toy shine is gone. And now there's a matte finish on it. If that's all you did with most of your fleet, you're still better than most guys who are running brand new out of the box shiny plastic, okay?
Not me.
So
go ahead, I'm sorry.
So that's rule number one, is at the very least, matte acrylic, you're gonna protect your paint from all the finger and abuse, and you'll knock it down and give it a matte finish, okay? You're notch above the rest right there, okay? When all you do is just hit it with a contrast wash, do I have anything that's just contrast washed? Okay, this is fair enough. This is largely just a contrast wash, okay? Without dropping, pass it around, okay? It's sealed.
Can I have a glove? I don't have one.
It's sealed.
It's protected.
I know,
Okay.
so it's pretty-
Yeah, as we pass these around, please don't drop them. I dropped them enough as it is. Okay, so that's your first pass, okay?
That's second.
I'm sorry. Well, it's the first step. Okay, you've washed it. If you consider that a step, that's step one. You've washed it. Step two, you've sealed it.
It's
Okay,
the next day.
it's the next day. All right.
What's that too if you tried that?
Yeah, okay.
Now I'm confused.
So that's just contrast wash only. Okay.
Your catch.
Contrast wash and a little bit of relief. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And I'm going to demo this in a second. So we're talking right now, but I'll literally demo this in a minute. Okay. Or a couple of minutes. I want everybody to see what contrast wash alone does. So already it's gone from, you know, out of the box to probably, dare I say, better than average. Okay? Safe to say better than average.
And it doesn't have that scale that Bill Coat likes to leave behind.
Well, there's another problem with scale
Yeah.
coat, especially when you photograph your work, right? In scale coat, textures, and you can't control the texture. You can't control the pressure out of the can with dull coat. You can't control the texture. You don't know what it's formulated with. So if I'm gonna, you know, if I lay down this dull coat, what happens when I come on with a layer of an enamel-based thinner? Am I going to reactivate it? Guess what happens? You will reactivate the dull coat. Now what you have is goo. Try cleaning that mess up. You okay? Take the model, throw it away. Start over.
Yeah, you find out what the plastic looked like when it's in the mold before you...
Exactly, exactly.
That's now I know.
What? The voice of experience. No, it's
Or you choose the wrong paint to start with, and then go over with dull coat, and it goes.
yeah, exactly. Dull coat is going to react. Uh-oh. Chip's busting me on something.
Oh, here we go.
What are you busting me on, Chip?
I showed him how you did the underneath.
Oh, yeah, underneath matters. I'm sorry. Trucks, couplers, wheel faces, it matters. Now, for guys in end scale, that's a full-blown commitment. Do you want to keep your job and keep your wife, or do you want to weather? Fun.
Hey, like my wife says, better in the garage than at the bar.
Some wives will say that. Mine's pretty.
Might as well say that.
No.
Until they figure out what if I have a bar in the garage.
Which one would cost less? Why don't you be like Bushman and take up drinking and stop spending so much money on? That's funny. That's funny. It's very true. Okay, so
Excuse me, Mike.
Yes.
Just kind of general question with spraying with acrylics.
okay.
I always have more problems with them because I think they're drying very rapidly and drying in the nozzle.
Yes.
And then you just gotta clean it all out and start all over.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a commitment. Once you start, you better keep going.
Yeah. There's a retarder. Hey, Mike, how you doing, man?
Like,
Pull up a chair, man. Come on.
There's a
We're we've kind of just gotten started.
Swear for you.
We're just shifting out of first gear into second, so you haven't missed too much.
You missed the glove portion though, bro. So.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying about when you got splotcher results using the alcohol, it dries before it even hits the model. That's why you got the blotcher results. With the acrylics, you can have the same problem.
Right. Thin with the universal acrylic thinner, first of all. The only acrylic I spray is matte acrylic. Okay, now, I've talked about using testers, enamels, or Model Master. You all know that Model Master is testers. It's the same, just a different brand. Same, comes out of the same factory. Okay. The reason why I like the enamels, and I was taught this, I love Flow Quill. Great paints. Okay. If I'm going to do an undecorated and I'm going to build it from scratch, I'm going to paint it from scratch, I'll reach for Flow Quill. Okay. Now, once the base paint is on there, seal it with matte acrylic. Don't do a contrast. So I talk about this, or I'm going to emphasize this right now. Don't do a contrast wash with Flow Quill. I've got a Fox Valley Gevo that I almost destroyed. In fact, you know what? This, all right, I wanted to get the colors really, really accurately. It was this model. Okay, if you look at the BNSF, it's got a nice little fade on one side. Okay, that was totally accidental. I sealed it with matte acrylic, and I went and got the Flow Quill BNSF orange and the BNSF green, okay, to work, because I got the two colors. I prepare my contrast wash, I go at it, and all of a sudden I'm relieving the contrast wash, you know, we'll talk about relieving in a minute, and I'm starting to pull off the paint, and I'm like, what is going on? And I realized Flow Quill is made out of a more aggressive thinner, okay? It's like a lacquer-based thinner. Okay, it's great paint for airbrushing. Don't contrast wash with it. The solvent in Flow Quill is so aggressive, it ate right through the matte acrylic. Okay, so that makes the saliva from Alien, the creature Alien, you know, and Flow Quill are the only things that'll eat through matte acrylic. Okay, so use it to spray things in general. Okay, I use it for weathering my track. Railroad Tie Brown and Grimy Black. Don't use it as a contrast wash. While I'm on that, never use acrylic as a contrast wash. The whole point of the contrast wash is that you make a solution out of the enamel thinner and the pigment, the paint. You slop it on there and you relieve it. I'm going to demo that in a second. Okay. The way you relieve it is you take a Q-tip or a sponge, you get it wet with the solvent, the airbrush thinner, damp off the applicator, and then you wipe away the excess contrast wash from the bigger areas. That's what leaves just behind
Grime in the grooves.
the grime in the grooves, okay? And that grime in the grooves is what helps pop the contrast between this little detail, that little nook and cranny, and these expansive spaces of flat color, all right? It's in the name, contrast wash, con wash for short, okay? So the whole technique is really in relieving the first layer of paint that you put down, Okay, if you want to do different colors, what you can do is you put down color A, you relieve it, seal it with that plastic barrier, so what work is done is now sealed and done, protected. Come back over with another layer of contrast wash, different color, whatever, and you can layer it up and build it. All right.
So you seal between each step?
You can. If you want to do a museum piece, you can. You get one color right and you go, I like it, it's done. I don't want to damage what I did there. Seal it with matte acrylic, all right, with the matte acrylic. Wait for that to cure, then come onto it with another contrast wash, okay? And you can alternate between the plastic shrink wrap layer is what I call it, and the solvent or the reactive layer. And you go back and forth, okay? When you're all said and done with the contrast wash and you've sealed it with matte acrylic, now you want to take it to the next level, which is where, in this particular boxcar, these rust weeps, this was my aha moment, okay? I spent 3 years trying to use Model Master, whatever this is, rust, Model Master brown, Model Master whatever, and different brushes, and I'm trying with copper wire and toothpicks, trying all these ridiculous methods to try and get rust weeps that looked, I brought one as an example of what not to do. Where did it go? Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. My first rust weep, okay, big huge rust gash, right? This will look great on HO. It's totally bullshit on N scale, okay? So this is what not to do, okay? Take a look at it, pass it around.
What's your dry time between layers? Like you're saying layers?
If,
Like
yeah, you're, I think,
It's the
I-
size of it. The
I think it's, I mean,
You mean because in real life it would be like?
in real life it would be shot. It would, like, it couldn't run that tree. You know, it's like,
That's the rip track.
the car would be on the rip track waiting to be scrapped or, you know, repaired, okay? It's completely unrealistic.
Before, almost a place where we interrupted you, can I ask? a
Go ahead,
question about
please.
paint? The paints that modelers use are basically water-based and solvent-based, right?
Correct.
And the acrylics, the thing you're talking about sealing with, is water-based. I have a huge collection of local paints which are solvent-based.
Right.
And now you're saying don't use them.
For
What
contrast
solvent-based paints are you using?
I'm using Tester's enamel, Model Master's enamel, and Tester's Aztec, Model Master, all the same family. I'm using their thinner. I'm using this
So
stuff.
this whole big collection of local I have is now
No,
useless.
I would say that it's not useless, because if you're going to scratch build scenery, if you're going to scratch build a car, if you're going to do some of that, use the flow quills. Okay, you can mix colors as well with flow quill. So if you don't quite have the right color, just don't mix flow quill solvent paints with Model Master, because they have a different formulation, and there may be a reaction that your results will vary. Okay, and I can't guarantee what you're going to get. All right. I've just been forewarned. I'm not saying that you've wasted your money with Flow Quill. Flow Quill is a fine paint. All right, there's some guys say, our little weathering circles, they were getting all, you know, oh, I don't spray with solvents because they're toxic, and you know what? If you're spraying, where did it go?
That's a lot of the fear is how to deal with it and how to clean up the airbrush properly
Right,
with the solvents.
right. I understood, agreed, and I share that.
The kids come out of the garage.
Wow.
Okay, here we go.
I'm asking for
But you can.
Okay. Whenever I spray with solvents, I will wear this. Okay, I will wear this.
Put it on, let's see.
Darth Vader.
He's got the gloves, and he's got
Okay. I'm a little more lazy when I'm spraying acrylic. Yeah. No. By the way, some guys want to be frugal and want to buy the thinner in a bigger quantity. This is the cleaner, not the thinner.
Cleaner for the brush.
Cleaners for the brush, cleaner for the airbrush. If you have to spray the enamels, you use this to clean with, okay? Mic tip. Here's another mic tip for you. When you're doing contrast washes, okay, invariably you're going to contaminate the vessel that you're dipping into to get clean wash with when you do the relief process. I'm going to demo this in a minute. After a while, you have to write off that as, I can't wash with this, I can't use it to dilute, to create a wash with. All right, so just write on there clean, you know, and just reuse it, but use it only to clean brushes, all right? And after a while, when this gets really, really bad, it's just a slush bucket. Like, if I'm gonna mix this, I wanna throw this paint away, throw it in there, seal it up, toxic waste, dispose of it, okay? So, you know, I've got several of these in various stages of, so this is clean. I still use this one for a contrast wash. Actually, no, this has been demoted to brush wash, okay? So I just write on it, being a little bit, you know, ridiculous about it, but,
So what's your dry time again? I never
Yeah.
heard the answer there, Mr.
the dry time, you wanna give, I've pushed, you know, I've sealed it, and I won't touch it for the next day. You know, it'll probably be ready to go in a couple of hours, realistically speaking, but I won't touch it. Try and let it go for a day before you come at it. Contrast wash, I've done a contrast wash, and an hour later I relieved it. Okay? That's pushing it. My guru says a day between everything, but Rome wasn't, you know. So, you know, hey, I want to get going on this. You know, I have this weekend to do this. Okay, so I was getting back to the aha moment. I was visiting family in Vegas before I moved there, and relying on some art center experience. So you know, we've all read, maybe you haven't, some guys would use artist oils, okay? The oils are good because they stay reactive for a long time, as you can move them around, it's malleable, it's cleanable. It doesn't dry in a hurry, you can sculpt your rust weed, do all that kind of stuff with, but they take forever to dry, okay? So I went out and I got some burnt umber. All right, and I made a solution because it was an HO scale trick to weather trucks and wheels in a hurry. All right, so I went out and I committed to this, and I bought, you know, $8 tube of oil, and I did this wash thing, and I realized, you know, when I did my first set of N scale trucks and wheels in there, and it came out like solid rock, and I'm like, well, that was kind of a waste of time. So what else do we use? Okay. I've done a whole 2-hour session on this technique alone, and Michael Gross has run with it, and a few other people are catching on. Not that I'm saying I pioneered anything, but
Arrogant son of a, anyway.
absolutely, absolutely. Designer's gouache.
Oh, I invented
Yeah, designer's gouache. What about,
I invented that.
you invented that. Thank you.
Arrogant son of a, anyway.
Thank you. No, designer's gouache is a watercolor, okay? Relatively toxin-free, okay? It's a little bit of a price. You're looking at anywhere between $5 and $9 a tube, believe it or
It
not.
goes a long way though.
But
Landscape.
this is going to last you a long way, and I'll tell you why. 2 reasons why gouache is going to last. I'm really jumping ahead here, getting into gouache, but we're going to do the how-to on gouache another day. All right? It's too valuable to just pass over today. But the reason why I'm bringing it to your attention now is I want you to compare the rust weeps, okay, of here. We'll do this. Less likely of anybody dropping if we do this. We'll put it here. Okay. I was in Vegas, I was screwing around, and what I did was I used the gouache on this boxcar, and in the relief of the gouache, getting, you know, with this flat brush that I was using, getting these perfectly vertical strokes, it was wiping some of the gouache away, and the color was mixing on the boxcar, it was creating perfect colors for rust. All right, I've got a photo of the car that I was working from, caught it at Hill 582 on this one last year going downhill. So take a look at the rust weeps on this boxcar as compared to what I consider a failed experiment here. Yeah, just take a look at the two and compare. And tell me which ones look a little bit more realistic to your eye. Okay, and I think the gouache is hands down. The other thing about the gouache, here's another Mike tip for you, is get yourself, we'll come up on this, but a $3 plate at IKEA. You know, I went through every size imaginable, mixing paint bowl, little cups, and all this kind of. This is
50 cents a piece.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, just make sure it's white. okay? Not any other color, no chickens and flowers on it, right? You seal it up with, you know, with some cellophane here, you know, saran wrap. This stuff will reactivate the minute I get it wet again. Okay, I've been working off the same palette for a couple of months now.
The paint will reactivate?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's watercolor. Okay, and if I screw up a rust weep on the model, it's sealed with matte acrylic, right? I just take a wet little cosmetic sponge and wipe the whole thing off and redo the rust weep. It's unbelievably controllable, completely predictable results, completely editable.
What do you use to actually put it on there? Your copper wire?
We'll get to that. I don't want to, you know, leave you in suspense, but we're going to get to that next time when we do more hands-on. Okay. No. Today.
Stay tuned, yeah.
Hey, you got to leave one more, man.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing too, before I move to the next page, is where I know we're really taking a long way around mountain here. Work from realistic. Which one is this?
Did I miss
Here we
the
go.
aha moment?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, you probably did.
It was screeching.
It's one of those.
You didn't miss it. It's okay.
Yeah. All right, I gotta find the dang thing. Where is it? All right. Okay, you gotta look. The other mistake that most model railroaders make when they're doing weathering is they're just kind of like, oh, you know, I'm gonna weather, and they're gonna. I know this is the color rust I use, and this is a color for grime, and they throw it on there, and they've applied pigment to a car, but it's not convincing. It might be to yourself or to the modeler who's doing it, because you're looking at it and you're going, well, that's an improvement from out of the box. Well, yeah, it's an improvement from out of the box, but I don't think Inland Pacific is about mediocrity, right? You guys have set a standard for, you know, among some of the best modules, you know, that I've seen pictures of on the net, and that's what drew me to this club, is the realism of your landscaping and the track you're building and the way you guys are doing operations. So when it comes to jumping in and doing weathering, why settle for crap, you know? So get a photo, even if it's like, you know, if it's a photo, you know, go to the home, shoot whatever the subject is, go to the local yards, wherever it is you're gonna get your photos from, go online, you know, work from a photo. I'm not saying be as proto as the guys on Model Trains Weather. I mean, those guys are like, that's the road number, and that rust, I'm serious, that rust grid doesn't exist on that car. Here's a photo of it, you know, and they tear you in a hole, and it's like, you know what, this is fun, guys. Where did this stop being a hobby for you and be an obsession? You know, so what I'm saying is, find your source photo and work from it. Whenever you can, pop for photo paper instead of just inkjet paper. You know, and you get a library of things, you know, and resources, and you've got it, okay? And you can always refer to it, and you can always go back to it. The shelf platform, okay? That's inspired by a series of photos from the shelf platform, okay? You've got to work towards realism. Why? Is because when you see with your eye, it's like trying to teach a kid how to draw, all right? It's better to teach a 3-year-old how to draw than a 7-year-old, because by the time the human is 7, and you say, draw a plane, you do the Egyptian thing. Here's a fuselage, and there's a wing, and there's another wing, and I know that it has engines, you know, and it has windows. The way Stan draws.
Thank you.
And what's wrong with that, right?
But if you ask a 3-year-old, you know, draw this plane, now look at the relationship of this wing to this and that, and I did it. A friend of mine wanted me to give his 2 sons art lessons, and we were going to draw Daddy's Fiero. And the point is, drawing from your intellect or drawing from your eyes. So I'm going to try to get you to weather, not from your intellect. I know there's rust, and rust goes on wheels, and rust goes in your couplers, and there's a dent on the roof, so rust is going to go. Don't weather with your intellect. Weather with your eyes. Okay, that's the biggest rule you cannot violate. All right. So get back to that blue box car. All right. Hang on, I got a picture of it here. I know it. There it is. All right. Okay. That was, you know, so that was the inspiration for that car, and you know, relatively speaking, I kind of nailed it. All right. Now, getting ahead of myself again, but we'll come back to it. contrast wash is going to make something typically darker, all right? You're adding grime, rust, accumulated dirt, okay? This blue boxcar faded, all right? So it's a two-step process. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to seal it with matte acrylic. The next thing you want to do is mix, and this is where float coat will come in, is you're going to mix a lighter shade of that blue, okay, and you're going to spray the whole thing. That's one way to fade it, is to try to match the color blue and ghost light coat it, okay? There's another way to fade, and it's a little bit easier, okay? Model Master or Tester's sand. Write that one down. Here it is. Model Master sand. Number FS33531. Okay? You'll find it where, in the section that has military. Yeah, thank you, Steve. Military colors. Yeah, pass it around. It's a putty color, okay? It's a little bit warmer. Badger, bring it on. Yeah, we can do that. We can work with Badger. So the sand, what I do when I want to feather, like this right here, okay? After I did a contrast wash, I took, diluted, thinned it out, and just did a couple of passes with sand. And sand keeps it warm, like sunlight, but it's not adding white to it, so you're not going to get chalky, or it didn't go pink so much, okay? And so sand is a really good go-to to fade your paint. Now, you're not going to use sand to fade, war bonnet silver, okay? You will use sand to fade Uncle Pete yellow, okay? I don't have an Uncle Pete locomotive yet, but you giggling at Uncle Pete?
Oh, no. You know I run UP, but that's okay.
Do you run UP?
I do run UP.
Okay, that's fine.
No, that's good. I never heard that term, but go ahead. Eric,
You never-
No, go ahead.
Gomez chases you.
I'm just kidding. Trying to.
So, okay, so then you let's say you've sealed it, you've done a contrast wash, then you're gonna fade it to get it that chalky. It's been out in the sun for 20 years.
First?
You can do you can do a contrast wash first, then fade it, then come back in and do another contrast wash. Okay? Why not? Because in reality, you're kind of replicating the stages of what happens. You know, it's a new car, it's going to get dirty, then the dirt's going to fade with time, sunlight.
And if you don't like the layer, you can start over anyway.
You could.
Because the previous layer is still secure. Because
Right.
You already sealed it.
Exactly. Thank you, John. And that's the benefit of doing this, you know, on and off with the sealer. You can build up these layers. And it's as much time as you want to spend between the layers, okay? Now, if you're hearing one thing from me, it's a commitment of time. It takes a little bit of effort. Every now and then, I would encourage you, knock yourself out and try and do a museum piece, okay? I've had almost everybody in what we used to call the garage gang, the garage sessions, where we met once a month. Each of us would do a research paper on weathering track or weathering a wooden box car or whatever, and we present to the group. And over time, we built up quite a lot of research and a lot of papers and such. And everybody in the group kept pounding on me for not entering this. I'm not saying it's a work of art. They were. I still think it needs a little bit of work. It's a shame that Mike T couldn't bring some of his stuff, because Mike is like the ultimate whisperer. The guy is like, he's got finesse down way more than I do. Okay, some guys do. He's great. I mean, he puts lift rings on his locomotives. I love it. I can't do that. I feel like gigantor.
You're doing like, why?
Exactly, man.
But it helps.
Not lift rings, but grab irons were enough for me, man. Grab irons, every other word was,
Son of a.
Exactly.
But it's like weathering. It's the same thing. It's those little details that
Yeah.
add up.
Wait, they do add up, and I think I've got. Yeah.
Mike, let me ask you, like when I've done a lot of weathering on my stuff, obviously, some good, not so good, but I would do 5 or 6 at a time. So I'd come home and I'd start the project one night, like clean it, and the next night would be another step. So most of my time was set up and tear down.
Right.
Yet the project, really, the commitment to the project was only maybe an hour a night over, like a 2-week period.
Excellent point.